Every power swears that its money is untouchable. Every government insists that the system it built is permanent. And every era explains at length why the one before it was wrong. But history whispers a different story. From Rome to France, from the Confederacy to modern Lebanon, people woke up one morning to realize this. What they had saved had lost its value. Their wages had become meaningless. The system they trusted with their future had quietly robbed them. Collapse is not the exception. Collapse is the rule. The real question is not whether financial systems will collapse. It's what position you will be in when they do. The most dangerous illusion is the illusion of permanence. We look at bank balances. We trust national currencies. We assume they rest on solid foundations. But money is not a foundation. Money is trust, and trust can evaporate overnight. That is why history is both ruthless and instructive, because it repeatedly shows us what does not last and what quietly disappears. When examined closely, those who survive disasters share one trait. They were never completely comfortable. They were the first to doubt. Take the Byzantine Empire. It is remembered as the Eastern legacy of Rome that survived for 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Empire. At the heart of its economy was the gold solidus, accepted without question from Europe to the Middle East. For centuries, it was the closest thing the medieval world had to a global reserve currency. But the breaking point of the story begins here. You would think the lesson had been learned from Rome's disaster of debasing its silver currency. It wasn't. Byzantine emperors began reducing the purity of gold. The coins grew thinner. The alloys became cheaper. At first, no one noticed. Then suspicion spread. And eventually, the currency that underpinned Mediterranean trade turned into a political illusion. Loss of value destroyed trust, and once trust was gone, stability followed. Who survived? Not those who trusted decrees, not those who believed paper promises. Merchants who quietly accumulated real gold or land in places the empire could not reach. Everyone else watched their wealth dissolve. This is the first timeless lesson. Governments cannot resist the temptation to debase their currency. And when they do, real value flees into assets that cannot be counterfeited. But not every collapse is caused by deliberate monetary policy. Sometimes shocks arrive suddenly. In the mid-14th century, Europe was shaken by the Black Death. Between 1347 and 1351, nearly half the population disappeared. Cities emptied. Trade stopped. But the economic consequences were not one-dimensional. When labor vanished, the work of survivors became valuable. Wages rose, land and food became abundant relative to people. Families with liquidity, silver, goods, or simply the ability to work suddenly faced opportunities they could never have imagined. Abandoned homes, untilled fields, a buyer's market. If this feels familiar, it isn't by accident. We saw a modern version of this during COVID. Supply chains broke. Governments printed trillions to keep the system running. Those with liquidity accumulated assets. Those living paycheck to paycheck fell behind. Pandemics redistribute wealth, they always have. After the Black Death, peasants became landowners. After COVID, those with cash bought what others could no longer hold. Crises reward those with reserves, they punish those without. Florence's banking collapse teaches another lesson, the lie of too big to fail. In the 14th century, Florence was Europe's financial center. When massive loans to King Edward went unpaid, giant banks collapsed, deposits vanished, trade halted, trust evaporated. Size does not equal safety. Institutions exist for profit, not to protect you. When they fall, they take you with them. This lesson repeated from Florence to Lehman Brothers to Lebanese banks. The American Civil War tells a similar story. Both North and South printed money. Inflation exploded. Paper currency became meaningless. Those with tangible assets survived. Everyone else's savings were erased. In the French Revolution, ideals could not save money. Assignats were printed, trust collapsed, and the economy imploded. In the Asian financial crisis, foreign-denominated debt strangled nations. Debtors collapsed. Those with liquidity survived, and Lebanon. In 2019, banks locked their doors. Deposits were frozen. A lifetime of savings disappeared. Money in the bank is not a vault, it is a loan, and in a crisis, it may not be returned. So what do all these examples have in common? The survivors were not the ones who trusted the system the most. They were the ones who recognized its fragility early. Real protection does not come from blind faith. Real protection comes from tangible assets, real skills, and the awareness that illusions always collapse. Very crisis is a transfer from the majority to the minority, from paper to reality, from passive savers to active producers. The question is this: when collapse comes, will you cling to promises, or will you be among the few holding real value? History does not repeat itself, but it never stops crushing those who ignore it. If this perspective opened a new window for you, subscribe. The answers are hidden in the past. I will show you where to look.